Welcome to the You're Doing It Wrong podcast. I'm your host, Christian. Join us as we'll be delving into business and technology issues and things I've learned over the past 25 years consulting. Today, I've got Damien with me today, and we're going to have a little drink and a chat about what we've seen go wrong and pet peeves we've found. So welcome, Damien.
Hey,
Cheers.
thanks for having me. Cheers. Welcome, and good to see everybody. This is a little bit of a Glencairn I've got here, Christian. What have you got? I've got a
Nice.
Scotch.
So I've got a bourbon. This is Basil Hayden.
Nice.
It's a good one. I always forget about, but when I see it in the back of the cupboard, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's a good one. So
You
yeah,
want to educate me a bit more in the bourbons, given your background. I like the Scotches and the Irish whiskies, a lot of these local Tassie whiskies we have here too, which is we do it pretty well down here as well, actually. So Glencairn 10, this one, very nice, very nice.
very peated. I'm not a big peated fan. A little bit of peat, but not.
Yeah, no, this one's actually from more of a sort of a space side and up the Highlands, sort of further up Scotland. So they don't tend to have as much peat there. You get more of that sort of, that more lemony peach and sort of those orchard fruits, as they say, out of it. So it's quite it's not real dark, but you get a real good complexity in it, and you can add bits of water to it. So all those
Awesome.
people rolling their eyes thinking all these, over the top whiskey people talking, but I enjoy it. It's just a little vice.
Yeah. Well, it helps to get the conversation to flow, I find. So a bit more relaxed. What's your three favorite drinks? It doesn't all have to be whiskey.
So I still do. I've got all the gear. I sort of brew my own beer as well, and got a bit of a setup. So I got stainless steel gear, and sort of crush the grain and culture yeast up. So I'm a bit of a nerd with all of that. So I like a good beer, but I probably sort of did that for a while, and you go through cycles of that. So sometimes you do really big, heavy IPAs, and then you sort of cycle back to a good, simple lager sometimes. So that's always good. And of course, working in the office, coffee, of course. So the coffee is the other beverage of choice, which you sort of need to have, don't you, to get by, I think, effectively, or a good cup of tea, one of the two. What about you? You tend to like your coffee. I know that as well.
Yeah, I do. I like a good espresso with just a splash of milk, but or even just a tiny bit of sugar. It's one of those I found a necessity to kick the brain in gear and do things that, especially when you don't want to. Liquid motivation, I think they call it. I like a good bourbon, and I like a good wine too. So red wine.
So I like good wine. Yeah, I like a good big heavy Shiraz or a Cabernet. I don't know if you like the lighter ones. They have good Pinots where we are here too, don't they? But what do you tend to get? Heavy or light?
I will go the bigger ones, cabs. But I like the I like Tempraneos and other sort of Grenache things that are not so common, that are still big and really nice. So
cool.
Give it a bit of variety. Don't like to drink the same thing all the time.
No. Not like the wine when we have food. I know it's a bit cliche, but I really do like it.
Give us a little background on your experience.
Yeah. Okay. Very quickly, that boring. Yes, I just went through, I suppose. Yeah, the old cliche, traditional IT sort of progression, I suppose. Where finished university, and when was that? Probably back in 95 or 96. A bit scary now, looking back. And went straight into a IT company that did a lot of sort of self-development stuff and started from scratch. They sort of didn't do off-the-shelf stuff so much. It was customized development. So I went in and started being this young kid going in and writing test scripts and working with a team and a really good team leader and a good mentor, and that was really cool. So did the test scripts and that was really good for me. I'll come back to that later as what I found useful doing that. Then configuration management. and then went through and started programming. So I programmed for quite a few years, and just SQL and Visual Basic back then, a bit of C++, all that type of bizzo. And then after time, sort of hilariously find yourself, hey, just wait, why am I looking after a team now? What happened? So as a big project, shuffles off and there's still change requests to do, and you think, oh wow, I'm sort of here looking after a couple of people, which was cool, and helping do that type of work that was after the main project and support, and then into managing teams. So then looked after a support group for quite a few years that would go around and actually provide support and change requests and training for a lot of big government and private industry areas. So that was really cool. But then after a while, did more business partnering stuff. So working with a couple of the big companies and looking at the departments, different business units, and being that interface between them and the IT departments, essentially, sort of helping fill that gap, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. But the quick thing I was going to say, going back for my history, what was really cool, starting off with that structured team for me and doing that test use cases and writing test scripts and all that type of stuff, and then going through doing configuration management, I think helped me look back and see that whole cycle and why some of that rigor at that level was important and where it sort of fitted in with things. So I know doing the test scripts at the start really helped me be a good programmer later, because I know the testers would come in to look at our stuff and I'd already thought ahead about, they're going to look for this, or they're going to check that that's not lined up, or they're going to check that date format, all that stuff, and you know all that stuff. So that was actually really helpful for me. So finishing up, then sort of came, I wouldn't say full circle, but then end up contracting, so in consulting. And after that business partnering work, I really enjoyed that, but then got some work doing business analyst work, and they've kept doing that really because I really enjoy getting there and meeting people and being able to help influence and and build relationships. And so I found that really cool and kept doing that. So bit of
Nice.
mine. What about yours, Christian? Quickly, I know you've probably gone through this before. But what your background?
Yes, I've taken the swings back and forth between the business side and the technology side throughout my career. Started out, I guess, doing both probably at the same time. Then went full time IT, and then tried to get out of it, and then basically been consulting for the past 15 years. So that's and doing enterprise architecture, giving strategy to businesses on how to use their technology better. And lately, I think both of us have worked with some government agencies here, and I hadn't worked for government for my first 20 years of my career, and then basically the last several, I've done quite a few government contracts, and I think that's been an eye opener. Everything you hear about government's true, but in that I think there's a lot to explore. So give us a quick highlight of your government experience on what you've found different.
Okay, so I suppose what is it? The last like you dipping in and out of government and private over the years, and I suppose I've probably done a little bit more gov. Sounds like than you in the past, but that would always just change between projects. But the last, 4 or 5 years, we've been in and out of different departments where we are now. And look, so let's go through it. I've thought about it. I really enjoy it. And I think going through building a lot of those real relationships with people has really been good for me, going through those different departments. But I think it's really a bit of a consultant sometimes, or a bit of a necessary evil, I think, coming in, because the employees, I find, are just so busy with their business as usual activities. They really get flat out with that work and tuning into that. They don't get a chance all the time to step back and look strategically and to actually have the time to think, how can we improve this? The continuous improvement, where are the gaps? What can we do here? They're just keeping the machine going, and they're on essentially that treadmill churning.
Yeah, and I think that's a good one where this the capacity planning
Yeah.
is only they only hire someone if they can put them at 100% capacity, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where private enterprise maybe does a little bit better to make sure that everybody's got a bit of space to take up some extra work, because there's always going to be projects and other things that are going to
Yeah.
pop up. So you need that 20% margin, that little bit of buffer.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember, just years ago, and I did, we've done them on over that leadership type course. What this guy that ran it once, I really remember, stood out for me. He said, you got to look at your capacity like a glass of water, and he said essentially you should never really have it full. You should always have that 20% there capacity to be able to take on some more stuff. This sounds all nice in theory, but he said
Yep.
that's where your strategic and your planning space is. And he said for a manager or a real, a high level leader or as in government secretaries or department leads, they really should have half. But they should have half their space to be able to do that strategic planning and
Yep.
driving that. And it doesn't happen. So as I was going to say, that it's all that cliche off the side of the desk thing that you find any extra initiatives are done by people trying to jam it into their not available time, and that never works. It's not effective. So it's either not done very well or it's not done. And so extra stuff that's needed just doesn't really tend to occur, unfortunately, as much as we'd like it to. So we get to come in and I suppose get to step back without that clutter of business as usual, or even that influence of that, and be able to look at it with the different set of eyes and actually be able to have the time to help with it. I think that's where we add value, I think, effectively. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I think there's definitely that leadership uh, area in government where uh, you know it's a lack of understanding what the leadership needs to do. Like you said, there's lack of that forward planning, or that space to be able to forward plan, but also that lack of being able to make a decision.
yeah,
I've found, right. So the
yeah,
nobody wants to make the decision. They put it out to uh, have everybody put input. Every man and their dog has some input into it,
yeah.
and at the end of the day, nobody really wants to wear it in case it doesn't go as planned. So trying to get that decision, I find, with government can be difficult. Oh, is it somebody else's decision to make?
Yeah.
And like, no, no, somebody needs to make the decision and go, right. And I think that's a big difference. I also see between government and private industry.
Yeah, and I think, with the government, the challenge, as you're saying, is that it's bureaucratic in nature because it's political, and what we've found, I suppose, is that those high level priorities that those high level leaders make change so quickly because you got the reaction of you got community initiatives or issues that pop up. You got ministers making decisions, and so those decisions change very quickly. And then you've also got a widespread structure of multiple departments, each with their own heads of agencies or departments, each with their own needs. And I don't find that change or that outcome that's required or drive actually can flow down easily through those. So you find that that decision or that work that needs to be flowed through as an initiative just doesn't actually tend to happen easily. And I think, like you said, it's probably a fear of taking on that sometimes that accountability. And I think that is a concern. It's hard sometimes. That collaborative stuff and that bureaucracy, although it's got its place as far as ensuring that everyone has their say, I just feel sometimes, there needs to be a decision made. Otherwise, you could talk all day. So, so
Yeah.
that's some of
Yep.
the challenges around it. And look, it gets frustrating, I suppose. Yeah, it's just understanding, as you're saying, why that happens. And I think, that change in priority all the time. And you speak to some of those heads of agencies, and they think they've got so many different priorities all the time, and then it'll change tomorrow. So therefore, what are you working on effectively at the time, and what are you trying to lead? Makes
Yep,
it
yep,
pretty
yep.
hard.
It's what's in
So
the news and what's
that's right.
politically expedient at the time. Yeah, that
But
um,
private, like
changes
you
their
said,
priorities.
private effectively tends to be a little bit more around. If we don't have a customer, we don't have a business. Therefore, and what are we actually needing to do to keep driving that? And it's probably maybe more financial based as well and profit based. So, yeah, that's obviously the different driver for the private as well.
Talk about culture, right? And culture and businesses. And something that has been a pet peeve of mine is around how you collaborate and the tools we use to collaborate.
Right.
Right? I don't think, and I think the missing piece here for me is I believe that the tools help to dictate the culture, and I
Okay.
don't think that before that's been really looked at, right? So people talk about, oh, we want to change our culture. We want to be, more communicative within the teams and things like that. But I don't see, if you're using a terrible communication tool,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if you're just sticking with the standard, platform tools that every business has, without looking for something better, I think you're gonna be stuck. I don't think, you know, just just saying, "Oh yes, let's use Teams better and let's use
Yeah.
SharePoint better." It just doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
I believe there's a need to look outside that to find some good collaboration tools to really change that culture.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point actually, and a couple of things that my mind jumps just straight away is, yeah, firstly, the tool that, well, I just find that a tool will be picked, and like you said, it's often the generic type of tool, and then I find that the individual people using it, often there's no training given. The people need to sometimes, obviously get off their own back and learn how to use something, but we end up using these tools like 10% of what they are as well, what they need to be used for. So people don't get trained. It's new thing gets rolled out. We're just hacking stuff in and just using the bare bits of it. And so therefore that's not very effective. As you said, some of the big companies, the government or private will just stitch up and just use the vanilla stuff. And that's not always the best product either. But yeah, and stuff like Teams, I mean, I think it's really interesting talk around changing with over COVID times, and we're all working a bit more remotely, which is all cool. But I do think sometimes, sound like an old man, but I reckon it's actually reduced a little bit of the face to face catch up culture stuff too. And you see a lot more of the hybrid meetings occurring where you do have people hooking in, and that's fair when it's required. And that gives us real power to be able to speak to people that are remote, which we couldn't do before as easily. But
Yeah,
sometimes when you look around, the thing that I laugh about the culture, you look around the office and seriously, you'll see, everyone probably sees it too, 5 people on a meeting, 2 meeting rooms spare, and they're all at their desks. And
yes,
you're thinking, okay, well, why don't you just actually go and grab the room and just have a chat together, because you're all just sitting at your desks, and maybe eyeball each other a little bit and communicate. So I think that the tools can sometimes get in the way of some of the important things too, I think. What else
yeah.
do you think about the tools? You think about other specific examples as well of what we use?
Yeah, I have a few examples.
Yeah,
Uh, well, yes, I think, especially we work a lot in the project space,
yeah.
and the fact that tasks and project status are tracked so many times in Excel sheets,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
or an individual task list. And
Hmm.
then people keep coming back. Well, why? We want to be able to report and we want to know how the status goes, but yet there's no platform. Oh, it's too hard to decide on a project platform. Seriously, there's 100 of them out there. All of them
Yeah,
are better than what you're doing. Just pick the cheapest one if you want. It
yeah,
still will be better. And some of them are quite inexpensive. Some of them, flat fee for the whole company. Some, if you only need it for certain users, then you can go bigger. But look,
yeah,
there's no point. Like, if you're serious about running a project, you're serious about trying to get people to collaborate. posting and understanding the progress of stuff. And I think that's a big key, right? You want the platform to give you that status update rather than having to have the meetings. It's because
Yeah.
all the time now everybody's like, well, we'll just have a Teams meeting for 30 minutes and everybody can give their status. I'm like, well, it's better if the status is there in a collaborative space. People
Yeah.
read it, and you have the meetings for more important stuff,
Well,
right?
that's right. Where, without being hypocritical about that, yeah, meetings, I said before, are important, but it's got to be for value. Like you said, if you're just getting in there to flick through some Excel spreadsheet and you could have consumed that a better way, then that doesn't sort of make sense to waste the time, does it? And I think
Mhm.
Excel, man, I think Excel's become the Access database of the 90s. Access database was just overused and abused. And, the Access database, for what it was, for its core little bits, were actually okay for the time, but it just got swelled out and abused, and you're finding it just used for things that shouldn't be. And Excel is exactly that now. When you look across some that are, how many tabs and how many rows, and you're thinking, and how many pivot tables can you match into it? So I wonder what I'm trying to work out why that is, though, culturally. Is it because it's just easy to go and grab Excel? It's always available on our desktop, and you can just quickly bang out some tabs and stuff. I mean,
I
what do
I
you
think
reckon?
so. Maybe it's the most common denominator, right? So you've got Word and Excel, and if you think you might need to do something with it, you'll do it in Excel versus Word, right? And I
Yeah,
think that's what everybody knows, and is any work environment you go to, you can pop that up, but I don't really feel like that should be an excuse. I think, I think it's up to the business and the chief technology officers and the
yeah.
such to
I was-
really drive innovation in that space. To say no, we need something better. We want our users to have something better.
No, as you were saying it, it just made me think what is missing that has caused that gap, and without trying to solve it. For me, I remember we used to have an R&D group where I used to work, and they were literally given a bit of lead to have a play, go out and sort of
Yeah,
assess what was out there for our area, and then come and present to the other developers or management. Hey, this is the way it's going. And I remember back then, ages ago, when we're doing more, web development was actually, websites and business sites and things were becoming more popular years and years ago. And people were looking at the different ways to do that and accelerate that. And I'm just wondering whether in business now, whether that's seen as fat, and that the money is not being put into bettering that. We always talk about improving business processes. I'm just wondering if there's a
yeah.
gap in actual
Right.
technologies. You're saying, yeah,
Well,
what's
I
that?
I think it's a laziness, right? So this
Yeah.
is a laziness of technology leaders. Um,
Mm,
the first thing is, all right, what's included in our Microsoft subscription that we can leverage, right?
yeah,
So that's the first reaction. Okay, we need a new capability. We need to do this, right? So enterprise architecture planning, right? So we go capability based. But okay, what does Microsoft have in this space, right? What's already included in our Office 365
yeah,
subscription, and that seems to be the number one thing that everybody goes to. Do we already have this tool for it? And and that's fine, but they don't go, does it actually fit?
yeah.
Right? They just go, okay, well, we have it, so we should use it.
Mhm.
And just because you have it doesn't mean it's the best for your business, right?
No,
And Microsoft is great at, especially in a lot of these tools, is getting about 80% there, but never finishing off the last 20%.
yeah,
And some of these things, it's important to have that last 20%. Like you need a
yeah,
fully functioning,
yeah,
piece of software. And a lot of these tools that Microsoft just quickly develops, and they go, unless it gets massive, take up, that they just won't finish it off.
yeah,
And that's frustrating, right? So, and I think that's frustrating for users because they start to go down a way, and then they can't really get the rest of the business on, and to use it because it's not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
And then the business decides, oh, well, I guess we didn't need that capability then. It's like, well, you just gave them an incomplete tool,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So don't
No
be a
one.
tool.
No, it is interesting, and I think that also when you delve down that next level, which when you're looking at a organisation or a government space that has a lot of different units in it, then they'll use different tools. If you look at that fragmentation or that diversity in that space across all those areas, then you start finding that culture part. People are using tools even for their own internal systems for functions or service delivery that, like I said, that's got its own communications. It's got its own data definitions and terminology, and that creates a difference in the way we communicate. Someone in a certain functional area will call something this because the system refers to it as that. Someone else will have it because, we're actually talking about the same thing, but we're talking very differently about it because our systems are dictating that
Yeah.
terminology. And I think that also flows through to that culture. And you can see, I don't know, pick recruitment or work health and safety space or something. They'll be reporting on similar things, but be referring to them quite differently. So, yeah, it's really interesting. So, I think back to the point about the tools that we use. Yeah, I don't know what the answer to that's going to be unless we start actually. Maybe the point is that, like you said, we're using a tool, but not necessarily working out why we need that tool. Are we looking at what the needs are of the business before we're just going,
Yep.
bang, use that? Hey, that's not actually what I'm needing. Well, that's what we've got, and that's what we get
Yep.
licenses for. So, boom, So it could
Yep.
be once again that are we missing actually checking what we need? I
Yeah.
suppose for the
Now,
sort.
I had one business tell me um, they wanted to move to OneDrive because it was
Right.
included in their Office 365 subscription.
Yeah. Right.
And I said, well, is that the reason you're moving? Like, what are your guiding principles about around this? Like, what you just chose OneDrive because it came in your subscription, and
Mm,
you just thought you should use it. And
yeah.
yes, maybe it's the right tool, but maybe it isn't, right? Have you done the analysis? And it's, and this was years ago, so the OneDrive's gotten better. But
Yeah.
at the time, the sync wasn't that great, and there was going to be lots of issues on cross-platform stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but, the driver was, well, we have it, so let's use it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that should be the driver.
No, and I don't want to spiral off too deep, but these tools, as you're saying, there's the components of, yeah, we need to use them day to day to either collaborate or we need to get information into it. But then the big gap also is how we actually then consume that. I'm finding, reporting always, the problem is people don't actually look at what we need to then consume of that information that we're putting in there because that culture, well, that drives a huge part about how we look at continuous improvement, how we look at communicating things to other people, how we see where we have gaps or see what we need to achieve. So I think, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but we need to really probably look at all this stuff out there that's just not the vanilla standard offerings, essentially. But I think you said it's laziness on that IT lead. I don't know if they're looking strategically of that end to end, I suppose, need right through from putting it in, getting it out, and then actually communicating and using it along the way effectively.
Yeah.
So,
I think this communication aspect, right? It's going to only get more important as we get the next generation of workers coming in,
yeah,
right? So I did some work in the digital experience space, several years ago now, uh, late 2018, 2019. And that was mainly focused on the performance of what the perceived next generation would want out of the performance of their systems. They want them to work like a smartphone, where it's
yeah,
always on. Apps just load up, and right there's no real
yeah,
slowdown.
yeah,
Outlook doesn't crash, right? But I think that kind of missed the point at the time. I think what we need to look at is this next generation is used to using social media for everything, right? So they know how to use Facebook, Instagram, uh, Twitter, X, whatever, and all the others, right? To collaborate quickly, And if they are hamstrung by these other older technologies in business, right, it's going to frustrate them.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit, because that next generation, if we gave them great tools, would probably be really good at using them. It's
Yeah.
probably the older generation that will be the struggle to get them to use the new tools. But I think once they see the value that can be given by these tools,
Yeah.
they'll be on board. But um, again, and that's the CTOs, the CIOs, the head of technologies that are our age, that maybe are not wanting to go down that road of
Yeah.
of being forward thinking. But if you want to hiring new people into your business, and you want to make sure that you have a good attractive position
Yeah.
for new skilled workers, you're going to have to give them those tools.
Yeah, and they're going to have expectations as a baseline, as you're saying now. And I mean, that's all cool. And the thing is, though, a bit like we always do in IT, and we always said it when we were back younger, you have to do it every day. IT people always need to find a way, okay? And the generation that are going to come through, if they don't have those tools available, they're going to find a way to use it. And that might be by their own means, their own apps they've got, their own tools. And that is cool because it gives them some autonomy in that space. But I'm just wondering long term what impact that'll have of if everybody's having to find their own way, so it all fragments out and we don't then have a joint collaboration in a business because people are saying, well, you're not giving me what I need, so I have to go off and find it. And Jeff sits over there and he hasn't got the tools, so he's using some other BI thing
Yeah.
himself. And you think, that's why we've got people doing separate things everywhere, where it'd be cool if we had the tools that we could all do that together and share and learn together as well. But everyone's off having to find these own avenues to get their needs. So it's going to be very interesting. And I can't see businesses, to be honest, keeping up with that in a hurry, which is a little bit scary. Some will, but overall, I do see a bit of a divide coming of what we're not even really keeping up with it now. So even if we were, that's still going to be tough to keep up with the expectations of the next group of people coming through and working with us
Yeah.
and after us. We want them to be effective. We want them to have what they need. So
Yeah,
interesting.
I think there just needs to be that shift in mindset
Yeah,
from the leaders,
yeah,
um, and that just with shadow IT. I mean, that's the biggest thing right now, right? It's going to be that, well, as soon as somebody puts it on a site that they probably shouldn't have to, and your business data gets compromised because
yeah.
it was used in a non unauthorized software, cloud software that somebody just signed up for. Maybe
Yeah.
that's when they'll take notice. But of course, they'll do the wrong thing rather than embracing. Yes,
I'll just
let's
block everything from being able to do that.
yeah,
That-
let's figure out, instead of let's figure out a reason, why you went to that, and let's give you tools better so you don't have to go outside of what what we've vetted. It's, well, let's just lock down everything, right?
yeah,
So
that's true.
it'll be the wrong reaction.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
No, very
Um,
interesting times and exciting because there's going to be a lot of change coming. And yeah, it's just about making sure that we're all keeping up with that stuff too as we move through and keeping an open mind, I think, and be willing to. And this is where some of that gap in your cup we're talking about, because you need to be able to keep on top of some of this stuff as well. And sometimes it takes out of your own work hours to be able to look at that, unfortunately, at the moment. And that's cool.
there's always more we could talk about government and the
Yeah.
fun times there, but I thank you, Damien, for your time today.
No, it's been excellent
And
speaking about it. Thank you.
it's been good to join you for a drink, and we'll have to
Yeah.
do it soon.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Christian. And catch you next time if we have another session. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining us, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us today. And if you have any questions for the guests, pop them into the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.